This video is for homework and mastery 2.3, subtracting integers. When we're subtracting integers, we want to think of the number with the negative sign in front of it as the opposite of b. To subtract, what we're doing is actually adding the opposite of the second number to the first. What that means is whenever I have 7 minus 11, I'm looking at this negative sign here. I'm going to change that to plus the opposite of my second number. So I actually have 7 plus a negative 11. Now then, you're used to seeing it this way from the previous video. 7 plus a negative 11. Which one is larger, 7 or 11? Well, the 11 is. So my final answer will be negative. And the difference between 7 and 11 is 4. So I get negative 4. Let's try a couple of more of these. 21 minus 38. That would be the same thing as saying 21 plus a negative 38. I also have 5 minus 7, or 5 plus a negative 7. Anytime I look at these, I always think of in terms of money. I have $21 in my pocket, and I have to pay a bill of $38. How much money do I have left? Or how far in the hole am I? I actually am in the hole $17. Because notice, this number is positive, this number is negative. So my final answer is going to be negative. And I take the difference between 21 and 38, which is 17. Same thing here. My 5 is positive, my 7 is negative. So my final answer will be negative since 7 is larger. And then the difference between 5 and 7 is 2. So my final answer is negative 2. Remember that in performing subtraction of two numbers, the first number does not change. The subtraction sign is changed to addition, and we write the opposite of the second number. We find the result of this addition process. Now then, let's look at an example with multiple items. I have 5 minus 9 minus 3 minus 7. Oh, this doesn't look real pretty, does it? Well, let's look at it. Another way of rewriting this would be 5 plus a negative 9 plus a negative 3 plus a negative 7, as I have done here. Then I can look at it. All three of these are negative. Combine my negative terms, negative 9, negative 3, negative 7. Those become negative 19. And then I have 5 plus a negative 19, which will give me a negative 14. I could have done it one by one and said 5 minus 9, which would have given me a negative 4. And then I would have had negative 4 plus a negative 3, which would have given me a negative 7. Negative 7 minus 7 would have also given me a negative 14. Whichever way is easiest for you. If you need me to show you that way, please ask us and I will show you a different way. Let's look at an example where we start out with x's and y's. I have a negative x minus y minus 6. Remember from the previous videos where I told you it's very important to put your x's and y's in parentheses before you start replacing them with the numbers in which they are asked to be replaced. Notice I left their negative signs on the outside. That's because I just want to replace the x and the y with these numbers. When I do so, notice this negative sign carries down and the x is replaced with a negative 2. This negative sign carries down and the y is replaced with a negative 3. And then the minus 6. Now what happens? Well, I have the opposite of a negative 2. What's the opposite of a negative 2? That's a positive 2. What's the opposite of a negative 3? The opposite of a negative 3 is a positive 3. And I can change my minus 6 to plus a negative 6. So now I have 2 plus 3 plus a negative 6. 2 plus 3 becomes 5. 5 plus a negative 6. Which one's larger? The negative 6. So my final answer will be negative. What's the difference between 5 and 6? 1. Negative 1. Very good. Let's look at a word problem. A portion of the Dead Sea is 1,286 feet below sea level. What is the difference in the altitudes between Mount Carmel in Israel, which is an altitude of 1,791 feet, and the Dead Sea? Dead Sea is considered to be, sea level is considered to be 0. So if you're below sea level, that's like being a negative number. If you're above sea level, that's being positive. So Mount Carmel is a positive 1,791 feet. The Dead Sea is 1,286 below sea level, or a negative 1,286 feet. Whenever I want to look at that, I want to look at the higher altitude, which is the 1,791, minus the lower altitude. Remember that minus a negative, I change it to the opposite. So that would actually be 1,791 plus 1,286 feet for a total of 3,077 feet. The difference between these altitudes is 3,077 feet. Because what I'm doing is I'm coming from sea level, from the Dead Sea up to sea level, which is 1,286 feet, and then going another 1,791 feet up to Mount Carmel. So I'm adding the two places. If you need help, please let one of us know. Subtracting integers is probably one of the harder processes here, but it's going to be one that you really have to get down and understand for all aspects of this. So if you need extra practice or anything like that, just let us know.